Our viewers, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has removed his embattled former chief of staff and earmarked from the National Security and Defense Council and headquarters of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. This comes after politicians repeatedly pointed out that despite quitting the post of Zelensky's chief of staff, Yermak retained his position in the Security and Defense Council and headquarters of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. Previously, Yermak stepped down on November 28, hours after anti-corruption investigators from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor raided his home in a scheme involving alleged kickbacks totaling at least $100 million from suppliers to Energoatom, that's Ukraine's nuclear power company. And I now welcome Shruti Das Gupta, International Affairs expert, joining us live in the discussion here. Thank you, Shruti, for speaking to us this morning here at NewsX World. Appreciate you taking time out for us. Shruti, how is this going to affect Zelensky now in his peace negotiation? Already we know that Yermak headed the presidential office as well since February 2020 and was considered the second most powerful man in Ukraine. He was also the Kiev's chief negotiator in the war. Of course, that position now taken over by Umerov. But what does it show about Zelensky?
Greetings. Thank you so much for inviting me. What I understand is that Yermak was the voice of Ukrainian policies as far as the peace negotiations were considered up till now. But from what I've heard and read in reports, it shows that US prefers to deal with the security chief. So now we have the security chief leading the conversation. So I do believe there might be a different tone and a different level of negotiations coming forth from the Ukrainian side. For Zelensky himself, this move of removal of Yermak from these positions show that he understands that there is a larger furor against corruption. This is not the only corruption scandal that is plaguing Ukraine, and there are many. In the times of war, it tends to happen that people get their fingers sticky, and a lot of projects seem to be under the shadow of kickbacks and scams. So this particular act of removing him from the NSDC and from the commander of chief office, it shows that he's aware that the man needs to be stripped of all forms of power, and just accepting his resignation would not be enough. He needs to be away from position of control and power so that any investigation results or any policy is not influenced by him, despite not owning to an office as of now. So the move is good for Zelensky. It looks as if he's being impartial, despite having a very, very long-term association with Yermak. But it also leaves him without his right-hand man up till now, and it definitely may look as of now that Ukraine would be slightly handicapped in peace negotiations because a lot of foreign dignitaries had expressed the ease of conversation with Yermak, and a few of them had expressed that they had they had a difficulty in getting through their point of view because Yermak was very known to have very rigid rights and wrongs in his head. So there is a conversation around that also happening. How the peace deal proceeds is something we'll have to see in the future.
All right. To stay on with us, Shruti, there's some more inputs coming in that we'd like to give our viewers. Now, a joint statement has been issued separately by Umerov and the United States Department that said that U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy held constructive discussions with Ukraine's senior negotiator Rustam Umerov in Miami. Now, according to the statement, Secretary Umerov reaffirmed that Ukraine's priority is securing a settlement that protects its independence and sovereignty, ensures the safety of its citizens, and provides a stable foundation for a prosperous democratic future. This comes after Putin's meeting with Witkoff and Kushner for 5 hours in the Kremlin, which focused on a US-backed plan for a settlement of the Russia-Ukraine war. And let's bring back Shruti into the discussion here. Shruti, the peace plan discussions have been going on for quite some time now. Now both leaders have expressed that the peace plan is moving in the positive direction. I'm talking about Zelensky and Trump, but of course Russia does not believe this as much and does not want to concede on its rather maximalist demands. So what's going to go from here?
Well, Putin, in not so many words, has in the last few weeks been very, very clear about his agenda. He said that his point of view on the peace deal has to be honored because Russia has invested 4 years, lots of manpower, lives, loss, as well as taken on a large economic hit for the war. And if the peace has to come through and Ukraine has to save its skin, then they would have to pay for their pound of flesh, and the pound of flesh shall come at the bidding of what Putin wants. This is a hard line that he's not willing to budge on. He wants those territories. He wants to own at least, I think, up to 20% of the land mass now as independent regions, and he wants to retain Crimea. And I do not know how it will go forth, but there are the economic aspect of this entire peace deal, as in the frozen assets and how they were used, how the reparations will go through. So there is a larger conversation happening behind it, which we are not very aware of. While the 5-hour conversation with Putin, with Kushner and Witkoff, with Putin did not bear any fruits, it shows that US and Russia seem to have conversations going, but they lead nowhere. So Ukraine is probably stuck between a rock and a hard place. They would have to either give up territory and the rights to own arms and a whole lot more, or have to face with a more aggressive campaigns in the winter months and a larger loss, economic as well as life loss, if the war continues and enters after its 4th year.
All right, Shruti, thank you for your comment there. Do stay on as we move further. There are more developments that I'd like your inputs on. For now, we always shift our